Hello everyone, once again this is the Mushroom Wizard with yet another presentation for you concerning the mushrooms of Saskatchewan and mushroom picking those mushrooms. So this one's on the puffballs of Saskatchewan. I hope you enjoy because this is a very common type of mushroom and every mushroom picker should be familiar with them. So the genre that we will be looking at are Apioperdon, which is a relatively new genre, just came into existence in 2017, Calvatia, gigantea, and Lycoperdon. We'll answer the question first and foremost here, what is a puffball? So puffballs are very closely related to the common button mushrooms that you buy from the store, the Agaricus genus. And unlike those mushrooms, they do not have gills. They produce their spores internally. They have almost like a skin-like layer that covers them, and they're usually spherical. And inside, if you were to cut a puffball in half, you would see a solid white mass that's called a gleba. And this gleba basically becomes spores over time. It goes from white to either a green or a brown or a purple, depending on the species, and then dries out, and it ends up with a hollow sphere filled with spores. At the top of that sphere, a small opening will open up once the sphere begins to dry out, that skin begins to dry out, and any sort of agitation will poof the spores out. You can see that happening in that illustration on the right there. So these are also considered to be choice edibles, considered by me, of course. It's subjective, as is with anything. Some people don't like them, and I think that's because they go into eating their first puffball expecting something similar to either a morel or a button mushroom, which are kind of the two flavors that people seem to look for when they first get into mushroom picking other species. These puffballs don't taste anything like either one. They have a very, very mild taste, almost like an unsweetened marshmallow. And I quite love them. They cook very nicely with eggs. And yeah, I mean, it has to be something that you enjoy to be considered choice. But if you give them a chance and you're not expecting something other than what they are, then you might really like them. And as well, they are fun to poof, and I say that because poofing puffballs is enjoyable for any child, and it's a great way to get them into the hobby when you come across ones that are old and ready to go. So let's look at some species here. First one we have is the classic giant puffball, Calvatia gigantea. So the fruiting body, because we can't really call it a cap, it is just a big sphere. The fruiting body is white to cream. It turns tan or kind of an olive brown with age. It is round or oval or sometimes like an eccentric sort of variation upon that theme. It is, when young, it has got this kind of very minute velvety skin to it. But as it grows, that becomes more just like a smooth, bald texture. And as you can see there's some pitting that's going on. Looks like a larger puffball there, or maybe some squirrels or something have taken a bite out of it. You can see the gleba underneath. So these do not have a stipe. What they have instead is a mycelial cord that attaches to the ground and connects, of course, to the fungus that would be lying underneath, producing the puffball. And that mycelial cord breaks very easily. And the reason for that is that when the puffball dries out and becomes kind of like a hollow globe, it becomes much lighter in weight, and the wind knocks it around and breaks it free from that mycelial cord, and the puffball goes a-rolling across the environment there and poofs its spores all over the place. So the internal gleba, if you cut this in half, is white when young, and it turns olive brown with age. Once it begins to turn color, it it's no longer edible. It's only edible when white. And these are up to a whopping 3 feet, not 3 inches, but 3 feet across and 1 foot high, making this one of the, if not the biggest edible mushroom in Saskatchewan. You can see that size reference there. That would be several kilograms, that mushroom. So that would feed a very large family indeed. In terms of the ecology, these are saprobic. They grow in grasslands or wooded areas, but more often than not in kind of like grassy areas bordering those wooded areas, or in grassy clearings in those wooded areas. They're solitary or scattered. They can be gregarious, but usually you'll only ever find a couple of them at a time. They're found summer through fall, and they are terrestrial. Their edibility is, as I described it before, these are, as far as I'm concerned, choice because they are so mild. They can be flavored to taste like almost anything. So with a mushroom that big, what people often do is they cut them into steaks. Then they'll put like olive oil or something on it, just kind of brush it with olive oil, and then put whatever spice they want to infuse this mild mushroom with, and then they'll barbecue it or fry it up like that, like a big meal. And like I said before, these are only edible when that gleba is white. And this is a good mushroom for beginner mushroom pickers, especially when it's very large, because there's nothing else it could be. And this information is going to be pretty much across the board here as we continue through the puffballs. So I won't spend a whole lot more time talking about their edibilities. Saskatchewan is a lucky place to live because we have both of the giant puffball species. This here is the western giant puffball crossing the border from Alberta, Calvatia booniana. Has a very different look to it, as you can see. So again, similar colors, round or oval, no difference there. It is covered with large scales, and these scales turn color with age much quicker than the body beneath. They're very geometric. You can see there almost like spike-like or pyramid-like protrusions. As it grows older, they crack and the surface becomes areolate, and we're going to see some pictures of that upcoming here. Almost like cracked mud, if you remember. Again, it has that mycelial cord, and that internal gleba turns olive brown with age, and the same size, generally speaking, as the other giant puffball. Here you can see it in somebody's hand. It's about the size of their head. A good-sized mushroom. Saprobic, these grow in grasslands or wooded areas, very similar to what we just saw. In fact, everything else is the same. These are found summer through fall. There you can see that areolate kind of texturing on the puffball. And yeah, they do dehydrate well as well. That's something I should mention. If you want to save some for later, they also freeze. You can cut them into those steaks and freeze them. If you find several giant ones and it's too much to eat in one sitting. This is the purple puffball, Calvatia cyathiformis. Another large one, but not as large as what we were just looking at. So this is tan to brown, turning deep violet with age. It's quite a beautiful puffball. These are round or shaped like an upside down pear. You almost see that there, and you did see it in the previous photo. They are smooth, becoming wrinkled or areolate again with that cracking, especially if it's dry out. And these become, this areolate becomes more pronounced with age. Again, same structure, mycelial cord attaching to the ground. The internal gleba is white when young, but it turns purple with age, a very deep purple. And it's up to about a foot across and a foot high. Here's a size reference for you. Again, you can see that kind of almost pear-like shape turned upside down. And the areolate cracking on the left there, or sorry, on the right. The ecology, as with all puffballs, is saprobic. You find these ones not so much in woodlands, but you find them growing in grasslands and in pasture land. These are solitary to gregarious. The larger ones tend to be more solitary though, and these are found summer through fall and are terrestrial. You can see that peeling there as that top opening pore begins to open to let the spores out. There's that nice purple color. It's a choice mushroom if you get it early enough. Again, dehydrates well, good flavor, but that internal gleba has to be white. Next species. So we're looking at some smaller species now in the Lycoperdon genus. So this is a common puffball, also known as a gem-studded puffball, and several other common names. I'd spend all day talking about common names. This puffball is white, turning a tannish color with age. It is round or shaped like an upside down pear, as you can see that there, and it's covered in these raised spike-like scales when it's younger. But it becomes either smooth or prunose with age, and that really depends upon, if it's raining, it's going to be smooth because it's going to wipe away that prunose dust. And that the prunose, again, I'm referring to almost like a white powder that coats it. The mycelial cord is attached to the ground. That is not a stipe that you're seeing, it's just a continuation of the fruiting body. And again, that internal gleba is white when young, turning green or brown with age. Often it'll turn green, then brown. It's up to about 2 inches across and 2 inches high, so significantly different in size from the larger Calvatia species that we just saw there. Here's a size reference for you. I think this one is quite beautiful when you first find it, and it's got those spikes sticking out. Here you see them with that prunose dust on them, and these ones have just opened their pores up top, and they're about to poof all that goodness into the air. I like to take them home and poof them in the backyard if I can, because then in time puffballs will grow right in the backyard. So these grow in grasslands and woodlands. You'll find them in both. They're fairly opportunistic that way. They're solitary, scattered, or gregarious. Much better if they're gregarious, because then you can actually make a meal. If you find one, that's not really anything. They are found summer through fall, and they are terrestrial. And in terms of edibility, the taste is the same as the giant ones, but the size is very different. With these, I like to put them in omelets, things like that, add it to something like a sauce or a meal, as opposed to them being the meal itself, because they're too small for that. Only edible while the internal gleba is white. You can see on the right hand side there, that puffball is much too old. That internal gleba is green and gross. This is good for intermediate mushroom pickers, and I'll get to why that is later on, as opposed to beginners. This is the Stump Puffball, Apioperdon pyriforme. This belonged to the Lycoperdon genus until recently, but was transferred to Apioperdon, which is, again, a single species genus. So these are white or tan, turning brown with age. You can see there, they're kind of turning brown as in this photo. When they turn brown, they're often still good to eat. The internal gleba takes longer to change than the outer. It actually turns brown relatively quickly. And these are round or shaped like an upside down pear, smooth or prunose, and they become wrinkled as they grow older. You can see the bottom there is kind of wrinkled. And the mycelial cords in these ones do not attach to the ground. These attach directly to wood. So that's a very big difference when you're looking for puffballs, because this is on wood, so you automatically know that these are Apioperdon as opposed to some other genus. The internal gleba is white when young. It turns green or brown with age, up to 2 inches across and 2 inches high. All that's pretty standard. And you can see here just kind of a size reference, and there's one cut in half. You can see that white gleba. That would be such a yummy one. The ecology is saprobic. These grow directly on decaying wood. As already mentioned, they are very common in Saskatchewan. And these are very gregarious. I've never actually found just a single one of these stump puffballs. Often you find them exactly as you see here, clumped together so densely that they're jostling for room and kind of squishing each other. And these are found summer through fall. Exactly same in terms of flavor and everything else. These smaller ones are really good for dehydrating. And yeah, I consider them choice. Next species, just moving on. The smooth puffball, Lycoperdon molle. So again, this is Lycoperdon, not Apioperdon. So this one we can assume will be growing on the ground as we see it doing. The fruiting body, once again, white or tan, turning brown with age. It actually turns brown very quickly. It's round or shaped like an upside down pear. Smooth or pruinose. I've only ever found them pruinose. They become wrinkled very quickly and then continue to be more wrinkled with age. You can see those wrinkles happening about halfway up there. Mycelial cord going through the ground. Internal gleba is white when young, turning green or brown with age. Same size as the other Lycoperdon species, very small. There's a size reference for you. Again, saprobic, growing in woodlands or grasslands. Very much the same as the common puffball that we saw first there. These dehydrate well. Again, everything is the same as with the common puffball and the stump puffball. So we'll just move past that. The peeling puffball. So this one is a bit strange. You can see on the right-hand side there, it's going through some sort of strange transformation. And that is what I'm going to look for. This is Lycoperdon marginatum. So white or gray, you can see it kind of grayish there, turning tan with age. These are round, very often just almost spherical. They're covered in these kind of smaller spike-like scales when they're young. Now the skin peels off as it kind of reaches its mature state, and it reveals a second skin beneath. And that skin is darker, it's smooth or prunose. It's got that kind of powdery bloom to it. And that second skin is tan to brown upon exposure, like dark brown. And the mycelial cord, once again, it attaches to the ground. Internal gleba and size are the same that we can expect from the other members of this genus. Here's a size reference for you. You can see those interesting spines. Now on the right-hand side there, you can see that skin peeling off, and you can see how dark it is underneath. These are saprobic. They grow in woodlands, so you're not going to find this as often in grasslands. These are solitary, scattered, gregarious, same as we would expect. Found summer through fall. They are choice. Once again, everything is the same here as with the other Lycoperdon members and the Apioperdon. So yeah, you can see those scales kind of flaking off there. Very interesting looking mushroom. This is the Meadow Puffball. This is Lycoperdon pratensis. This is another one that has two kind of layers to it. And it almost resembles a button mushroom or an agaric shape. It's not an agaric. It's almost like a mushroom making fun of the agaric shape or mimicking it. And that's not a stipe. That's just a continuation of the fruiting body, so to speak. So these are white turning tan with age. They are oval with this short stalk-like base that you can see there. They are covered in these fairly large spiny scales when young, and then they become smooth or prunose as those scales fall off with age. The internal gleba is white, again turns brown or green. This is all pretty standard again for Lycoperdon. Same size as well. And there you can see size reference. There's a fairly big one on the right, and you can see that internal gleba on the left there is well past an edible state. And there you see some examples with those spines. See how big they are and how cool they look. So this is saprobic. It grows in grasslands and pastures. Not going to find this one out in the woods. And yeah, solitary, scattered or gregarious. Basically everything else is the same that we expect from this genus. And the edibility is choice. Again, the same that we come to expect here. I'll give you a second here. Final species for our puffball conversation. This is the Mosaic puffball, Gigantea ultriformis, the only member of the Gigantea genus in Saskatchewan that I know of. So a bit larger than the other ones. So this is a white to tan mushroom turning dark brown with age. There's a round kind of shape to it, or it's shaped kind of like an upside down pear. You can see that shape going on in front of us. It's a large, slightly raised scaling that covers it, and it forms this mosaic pattern across the surface. And those scales begin to fall away, leaving a pruinose surface beneath. Very similar to the Lycoperdon species that we just looked at, the Meadow Puffball. The mycelial cord again attaches to the ground, and that internal gleba is white when young, but it turns a dark purple with age. And yeah, a foot across, foot high. There you go, you have a size reference. There's a relatively odd one up top there. Very eccentric in its shape. These are saprobic. These grow in grasslands and pastures again. Solitary, scattered, terrestrial, all the same as with most of the other puffballs. And you can see one on the right hand side there, just how much of a change it's undergone, and those deep kind of purplish brown spores within. The edibility again is choice, dehydrates well, everything else is the same. I'll let you just give you a second there to look at that, because we have an important puffball talk to have. The look-alike alert. And this is a fairly serious one. Some of these, if you were looking, say for beginner mushroom pickers, and some say for intermediate mushroom pickers. The ones that are for intermediate mushroom pickers are the smaller ones that are white that grow on the ground. And that's, if you look down, the reason why. These are not puffballs, these are Amanita eggs. Amanita mushrooms include some of the most toxic mushrooms that we know. And they begin covered with a universal veil. This is like a flesh, sort of like a fleshy covering that protects the mushroom as it begins to develop. And it looks like a puffball, looks like an egg, little puffball egg. And just continue on here. Here's what they look like cut in half. So on the left hand side, that's Amanita muscaria. That one is psychoactive and mildly toxic. So if you were to eat that, mistaking it for a puffball, you would be in for a pretty bizarre day. In the middle, that is Amanita bisporigera. That is the destroying angel. And they call it that because it kills you. So it basically liquefies your liver. Now, if you thought that was a puffball and ate it, well, you know what would happen. On the right hand side is an edible Amanita called Amanita jacksoni. So having said that, you know, it's just best to avoid Amanita eggs altogether. How do you do that? Basically, you cut the puffball in half from top to bottom. Puffball on the left, Amanita egg on the right. There's a little mushroom inside what you thought was the puffball for the Amanita eggs. It's pretty obvious once you cut them, but you have to actually cut them. Again, puffball versus the destroying angel egg. You can see a little mushroom there. It looks like it might be easy to mistake in the photo, but in your hand, it's very obvious there's a little mushroom inside that. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. This is the Mushroom Wizard, and I'll see you again on the next one.